The quick and dirty club master. Don't confuse this with the crafted final master. This is the me or a mate are playing out in a couple of hours. I've got this tune kind of there and I want to test playing it out. There's a whole bunch of options of things you can do. I've heard the likes of Chase and Status, they just put a limiter on and test the tune out that way. I need a little extra help and have to check a few things just to be sure.
Thanks to the channel sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid is a music distribution service and the best way to get your music out to all of the modern streaming services fast, efficiently, and within an independent artist's budget. Check out the description below for a discount today.
Right, so once you end your session, the very first thing you want to do, however you do this in your DAW, right? Zoom right in. Just at the start here, give it a little fade. And here, give it a little fade out. All right, so if we're doing a quick, dirty master of a test track to play out, we're not so much looking to add our own kind of feeling to it and get a perfect master. We're going to look to fix any major issues that would happen playing on something like a club system and get the loudness up. They're going to be our key things. So one of the very first things that I would look to do, top and tail it, and more of a gentle roll off on the high end than the low end, because we can just go straight off so there's nothing happening below 20 hertz. Now the next thing I'd want to look at is to make sure we've got mono compatibility, especially on something like the main drop. Now the only thing we've got on this is the EQ, but you can see we've got some gain increase, so we need to make sure we compensate for that. So we need to make sure we gain stage this now, all right? So as you see, if we take the EQ off, you can see even at the loudest point, right, we've got a decibel of headroom. Put the EQ on with these roll-offs though, and we've lost that and our track clips. We don't want that. And we're actually going to take it back down about 1.5 dB just to get it back where it was with those top and tails. So we're just gain staging it, keeping it where it was for the time being. Let's not have it clipping really early. Inside Ozone, or even Ozone's free imager, we've got basically all the tools we need. So let's pop up Ozone. If you've only got the free imager, it will do what you need in this case. And we're going to be looking at the vector scope over here, and I want to make sure that we've got good mono compatibility across this section here. Right, so good mono compatibility is going to be around the +1 here. -1 would mean we get cancellation between either side, right? Now, if we were to make the track mono, look, it sits just at +1 and it's perfect. Now, we want to test at mono and listen like this and make sure we don't lose anything. Now, we can make use of the multiband features here in Ozone. We'll just have a look at the low end here, and that's where we're likely going to have any real issues. And you see, it's pretty much bang on the +1 there, and we bring it up to say the 300 region, still like this bang on there. It wobbles a couple of times. What we could then do if we really wanted to control it for like Club Master, keep that held in there on the bandwidth 1, which is what this is, and dial that back, make it a little bit more mono compatible, and then overall the whole mix will be sitting in there, and we know that we're then not going to get weird phase cancellation and have things disappear. Equally, just test it in mono. If you've still got all the elements, perfect. So in mono right now, that's better balanced than it was without this being engaged, right? If I turn it off, that does help us out a fair bit there. So we've got good mono compatibility, we've checked that, we've topped and tailed it, we know we're good in that respect. Now, because this is just a dirty master, we know we've got a roughly good mix, and we could use something like tonal balance or a frequency analyzer just to give a rough check, make sure we're in the right ballparks. And while there's maybe some things I would do with EQ, we're not gonna be mastering this. We just want to test this mix out in the club. So next thing is loudness. What I would suggest doing is getting a reference in and say something like here. We are gonna go metering. We are gonna get ourselves a loudness meter, and we're going to get an idea of the loudness of this track, because in this instance we're not going to be mastering to like our -14 range. It's not going out on the streaming service. We need this to be competitively loud to a club mix. So we would take our reference like so, and ideally we're going to play it across the whole track, so I'm just going to cut this and we're going to have a result here. Alright, so we've got a ridiculously loud tune at -8.4 LUFS. I wouldn't master this loud for anything other than a club track where you got to be competitive, and even then I'd be tempted to dial this back from this tune, which was early 2000s when everything had to be stupid loud, but we know we need to be somewhere in that range. Let's mute that. Now go back onto our track. We need to get some loudness up. We can use a maximizer or a limiter. I would recommend just a limiter. I actually really like the vintage limiter, oddly enough, in Ozone. I think it does a solid job. Now, true peak wise, we're going to a disc. 0.3 dB is enough, especially if you've got true peak enabled. Might want to go to 0.5 if you've got extremely non-broken down in any section kind of music. If it was just like this louder section for the entire track, give yourself that extra little bit of ceiling, all right? True peak should take care of everything we need there. All right, and then we need to dial this back down, and we'll use our LUFS meter. Now, we can use the one built into Ozone, or we'll use the LUFS meter that is on your DAW. We want it to be across the entire track going for that loudness. Now, we've got much longer breakdowns in our track, meaning our overall average loudness would actually be louder on the louder sections if we went for the same target. So we want to dial it back just a little bit, compensating for the fact we've got longer, quieter sections than the reference track. We don't want to dial this back quite a way. And then the character at 0.29 just left all the crispiness and high end. It started to get a bit like false analog with the character any higher than that in this particular tune. So that's where we got. So last thing we need to do is bounce this out so we do it right for what we're going to, which is hopefully going to be a CD. If you're going to be playing or it's going to get played off of USBs, you want to do the same kind of file format. So we want to make sure we get the entire track. Now, I leave a little gap at the start here. So what we'll do is tap on the track. In Logic, I can just press a U, and that makes a loop around it. Command B is going to bounce it out for me. Introduce dithering, okay? If you're going from, say, 24-bit, 44.1 to 24-bit, then that's fine. You don't need to dither. When you're going down in quality, you always want to apply dithering. It's going to be a preference to what works for you. In this instance, we're probably not going to hear a difference because of how loud we're smashing the tune. So we just do the POW R-1. What we can do is render out all three and A and B them if you really feel you need to. Leave it on a PMC. We're going to go to WAV format just for CDJ kind of convenience, so we know that's consistent. WAV is what would come off a CD, for example, without any conversion needed. So we've got PMC, WAV, 16-bit, 44.1, interleaved, meaning the stereo files interwoven into one. We've got dithering because we're going down in quality. We've got our start and end point set. We're going to do it offline. We want to include the audio tail, but there won't be any, but we're going to include it anyway. We don't want to normalize it. We've left intentional little bit of headroom there as well. So let's hit OK and let that bounce out and do its thing. And that is it. Bounced nicely out of Logic in this case. As we can see, our LUFS target is pretty solid, -8.8. So we did a good job there. Let's just check out the file. So advisable you learn the different options there are out there for mastering. For example, this would be a terrible option if you were looking to distribute your music on streaming services. I explain and demonstrate why with audio examples in this video here. You should absolutely make sure you've watched that and got that information if you don't know it already. I look forward to seeing you in more videos in the future. Thank you very much for subscribing. Take care.